I'd literally got off a plane and I was falling asleep. Someone next to me was saying, stay awake for this. So I went to go and sit right next to Terry Lynn's drums. So that would keep me awake.
That's so funny you say that. We were just, I was just listening to the bootleg recording of that on my way here to LA.
Esperanza Spalding, thank you so much for joining us on both sides. We're really looking forward to seeing you at the Joy of Jazz on the 26th of September. Your mom was a musician. Was that the original inspiration, or were you listening to music even before you thought about it in any other way?
Oh, wow. Yeah, my mom wasn't a professional musician, but I think she's like so many humans on this earth that making music, singing music, engaging with music was such a big part of the fabric of her life, of our lives. She would make up songs when we got an owie. She would make up little songs to wake us up in the morning or to put us to sleep at night. And at one point, she pursued a degree at community college in jazz guitar. She wasn't able to complete it, being a single mom with 2 kids and all that. I mean, not that you can't complete it if you're a single mom with 2 kids, but she chose to put energies elsewhere. And so I know she normalized for me this idea that music is a part of your life, that it's a part of your day-to-day. My passion to pursue music, or not even pursue music, I didn't know what any of that framework meant. I just remember hearing a Bach cello suite on a children's program performed by Yo-Yo Ma, and I was so taken with the feeling of it, whether it was called music or it was a cello or not. I was 4 years old, so I wasn't registering any of that. It's just, I remember being so impacted and kind of shook to my core of the feeling of hearing that music. And that is what made me, want to get closer to that. And I can say since then, through the different instruments I've explored or composing or band leading or whatever, it's a continuation of that kind of pursuit of closeness, pursuit of engagement and fluency with a sound.
And the violin was your first instrument?
It was, yeah. Well, I think the truth is for most of us, the voice is our first instrument, right? I remember taking walks with my mom and asking her to sing like theme songs of shows that I had watched so that I could harmonize with her. Mm-hmm. And I think, singing is such a part of, it's in our DNA, it's like we're a musicking species. So definitely voice was my first way of expressing myself musically. And then the first instrument that I studied was the violin.
And then you progressed. I mean, you played the oboe, and then you went on to become a bass player. What about that instrument? And I'm just going to say, I'm not going to go full on fanboy, but I play bass, and my mom was a music teacher. And there's something about the bass that just, as I say, it's almost like an instrument that calls to you.
I dabbled in oboe and clarinet and things, but my primary instrument was violin, through my youth. And I remember walking into a room at my high school. I went to this little arts high school, and another school band was using one of our rooms to rehearse. And the one part of their equipment they didn't, transport back and forth was the acoustic bass. And so I remember walking into that room and picking it up. It was like a big violin. And I just started making sounds, having no idea what it was for, or how you play it or whatever. And it was the sound that kept calling me back to that room, like you're saying. I wanted to hear that vibration. I wanted to feel that vibration. And serendipitously, in one of those afternoons when I was probably skipping class, or I probably wasn't supposed to be in there, but I was, one of the other teachers, we didn't have a music program there, but another teacher who taught film or something happened to be a jazz pianist, happened to stumble in and teach me a couple of the principles of how you create bass lines on a blues progression. And that little window into how this thing works hooked me. From that, I think I could feel like, oh, I know how to do this. I can do this. I will be able to thrive in this, you know? And so little by little, I segued away from the violin and put my energies towards the bass.
You were then at Portland State University, and from a formal study point of view, you went on to Berklee. What do you think is important that one can learn at at those sorts of institutions, or at an institution that teaches music? Because I mean, obviously, I'm sure you know that Miles Davis had his own view about institutions of learning when it came to jazz music.
Yeah, I think it's really important to look past the edifice of an institution as a concept and remember that it's a collection of humans, right? Like a university, a school, Berklee College of Music, Portland State University. It's this framework that facilitates the exchange of knowledge between humans. And so no institution is going to be equipped to cater or design or thoroughly facilitate the transference of the information that you need as an individual from the milieu of other humans who are there as teachers. So that feels like once you get that out of the way, then we can talk about what it is to have this concentrated convening place of many humans who want to learn and many humans who have the knowledge accumulated of what the students want to learn. So fortunately, when I got to Berklee, I wasn't there for like the study path as designed by the institution. I really quickly met humans. I met people, musicians, elder musicians who recognized my talent, recognized my passion, and were willing to spend time with me, helping me learn, And I think one thing that might help a lot of young musicians going into institutions to get their learning is to remember that ultimately we're responsible for our education. Like we're responsible for seeking out the pieces that we're hungry for, putting ourselves in the presence of, maybe petitioning to join the ensemble of a musician that you admire, or petitioning to get into a class, or finding out what are the prerequisites to get into the class of this teacher, and really get really curious and passionate about how I will move myself into the orbit of and the tutelage of the humans holding the wisdom that I want to access. And I think once we sort of shift the onus or the agency, the responsibility to us as learners and all of the agency and creativity that carries with it, then the institution becomes like it's fun. It's a buffet, Sure. Not to mention all of your peers and colleagues. The main thing that Berklee did for me is that it brought me into proximity with musicians from all over the world. I barely remember any of the classes. I remember the jam sessions, gigs, and the recording sessions, and
you then went on, of course, to play with someone you studied under, Joe Lovano.
Yeah.
Who was just, I saw him at the Blue Note with a saxophone orchestra, and it was just was an unbelievable night.
I was in his ensemble, and I was in a few of his ensembles, and I remember him telling me, okay, I can't hire you yet because, you're a student. I can't be taking you out of school to do gigs, but when you graduate, I'll give you a gig. Working with him is and was such a foundational piece of my life in music. What I learned about what it is to be a band leader, because of the kind of band leader he is, he would always say, if you're on the bandstand, I trust you, so you have to trust yourself. And just that as like a tactic of building a band with musicians that you totally trust their artistic voice, their creative voice. And what you want is to create an ensemble of humans who can take kind of the DNA of your musical idea and trust themselves to animate it through their bodies and creative vision. It was so powerful. Plus, he's just like a master of the music, a master of the instrument. And within that is so humble and so free. And those are qualities I realize I deeply value now, the humility and the freedom in the music. And he made a lot of room for me to find like the fullness of musicianship in that ensemble.
You won the Grammy for Chamber Music Society in the same year that Bieber blew up. You won the Best New Artist. How does it feel to be inside, I'm going to call it for want of a better term, a pop universe, and be sort of appreciated and noted kind of beyond the niche that jazz has become? Because I mean, after your Grammy win, the album went kind of back up into the higher regions of the Billboard chart. I mean, how did that feel?
Well, I don't think that on the regular, my music or my name is like known or considered in the kind of largest arenas of popular music. I think in those few years surrounding the 2011 Grammy win, because of the context in which I got the Grammy, like the category, for a while, like my name was thrown around in these kind of more popular music spheres. But I think even in that, the folks who are going to buy my record or come to my show are curious about the music, I think, because it's really, I don't think like hearing somebody's name is enough to make you want to take 4 hours out of your life and go hear them in concert. So I think, if anything, maybe it alerted more people who would be into the music I'm making that I exist, and then I think about how this kind of the dominance that of certain narratives in music or certain sounds in music, and the kind of the ones who get a lot of media support or a lot of money thrown behind them. Not that that's not any diss on the quality of the music they're making, but you can get this kind of dominant narrative. There's only a few, or like there's this particular echelon of music that comprises everything that's happening in music. And my experience in music has always been there's like infinite worlds.
Absolutely.
This world is so huge. Our planet is so large. The diversity of our species is so vast that there's ecosystem upon ecosystem upon ecosystem upon ecosystem adjacent to like infinite ecosystems of musical expression, of creative expression.
Yep.
And trusting that. And once one allows themselves to trust that and be unapologetically committed to the sound that you have to offer to the world and the ecosystem that grows up around that sound organically, you'll discover that there's room for every musical world. And it's less about how do I occupy space in kind of this one particular domain of popular music, and more about trusting that the good quality, authentic work has its own gravitational force field. Absolutely. And an echo will develop around you. And that's what I experienced. I'm not going to lie or diminish the fact that getting that award, helped open doors for me, or book tours, or, do all of those things. Ultimately, I think like the staying power and of my music, whatever that may be, it really comes from people who are really excited about the music and want to support me in doing it and want to expose themselves to it and sharing it with me.
No, 100%. I always say to people, if you're listening to, Marcus Miller, you're listening to Aston Family Man Barrett, or you're listening to Chuck Rainey, they're all bass players, but they're all playing for the song. So, just kind of listen to as much as you can and then figure out where your place is going to be. I wanted to talk about, from what you've just said, your love of Brazilian music. And obviously you did the album with Milton Nascimento, but you also worked with Ron Carter, who obviously has played a lot of Brazilian music. He's done an album with Rosa Passos. He's done his own Brazilian album. What was that like to play with someone, as I say, who'd been around for so long and done, so much? He was obviously in Miles' second great quintet. I mean, what's the kind of feeling when you're in the presence of someone who's, as I say, been around, sustained such a career and been that influential?
Yeah, well, first I would say the phrase Brazilian music is like it feels like foamy. Like Brazil, the diversity of music worlds in Brazil, it's like uncanny, immeasurable. So what I love are this handful of musicians, handful of sounds from the vast field of the music that is alive and thriving in Brazil. I don't know Brazilian music. There's so much to know. Like I know a few little pockets, a few little corners of musicians and genres, within the field, the vast field. And they tend to be little pockets and genres that are kind of related to jazz, like with that samba or, Milton or Javan or Hermeto Pascoal or Dorival Caymmi, these ones, Ginga. I don't feel, I can't say, like, I love Brazilian music. I
Sure.
love the ones that I love. I know there's so much out there. And then with Ron Carter, I took a few lessons with him. I've never worked with him on a project or something. I took maybe 4 or 5 lessons with him. And it was just, there's, how do I explain it? Like, it's such a bizarre and rare and particular thing to want to study this music and play this music. And I think among folks who are really dedicated to it, it kind of becomes like a family. It's kind of like there's some commonality that you're inside of already. Of like, yeah, we're all these freaks, who want to study this and figure it out and listen to the elders and do this and that. And so coming into a lesson room with Ron Carter, it felt like being with a family member. It felt like being with an uncle or a grandfather who's like, okay, let me show you some stuff, Oh, have you heard about this? Do you know about this? Oh, let me check this out. Check that out. Try having your hand like this. It felt very like familial, to be honest. And because it's already a given that we revere him. He can feel that I revere him. So that's covered. And then I think, he saw in me somebody who was serious and would try to integrate what he shared with me to keep the river of this music going and churning and keeping the waters nutrient rich and contributing to the nutrient rich waters of it all.
The audience that's coming to see you at the end of the month in South Africa, what can they look forward to?
Really great music. This band is so special. Yeah, it's 2 of the musicians I've been playing with for 10 and 20 years. And then we're inviting a saxophone player named Linda, and I'm going to mess up his last name because I just met him, from Johannesburg, to join our quartet. And he has such a special, free-spirited, deeply, it's like a devotional kind of freedom that I really admire. So I feel excited for his sound to come into our ensemble. We're going to be playing songs from all the 9 records that I've released, and probably some songs that are like in between that maybe are less known from the releases. And a lot of bass playing, a lot of songs, a lot of storytelling, a lot of, it's my music. So I feel that this ensemble is like a very distilled, sophisticated and kind of refined expression of the music that I make. I feel the most free and expansive in this band that I have anywhere else that I remember. So that's what they can expect. Very dynamic, diverse assemblage of textures and sounds and styles. But the through line, of course, is my musical identity. So I don't know how else to break that down. But I guess if you've been into the last 9 records, you'll be into the show.
Fantastic. Well, the last time I saw you perform was with Ravi Coltrane and Terry Lynn Carrington at the Vanguard.
Amazing.
Yeah, I was sitting,
Wow,
I'd literally got off a plane and I was falling asleep. Someone next to me was saying, stay awake for this. So I went to go and sit right next to Terry Lynn's drums. So that would keep me awake.
That's so funny you say that. we were just, I was just listening to the bootleg recording of that on my way here to LA. We're doing a week at the Blue Note. And then when we got to the Blue Note, we saw that the last band that had been there was Ravi. That's my favorite music making that I've been a part of. The trio with Jerry Allen and Terry Lynn Carrington.
Yes.
And also this really special trio with Ravi and Terry. I'm so glad you got to hear that. That was good stuff.
Fantastic. And Terry Lynn Carrington's been out here before. Unfortunately, just before they were supposed to come out, Jerry passed away. So she was actually supposed to come out for a previous tour of jazz. So unfortunately, I didn't see her then. We're all looking forward to it. It's going to be fantastic at the end of the month. And thank you so much for joining us on both sides. Thanks
for having me. Thanks for supporting the music and loving the music. That's what keeps it all going, is y'all's love, devotion to the music. So thank you.